Hey, everybody. My name is Minda Hartz, and I'm your host of Secure the Seat Live, your weekly podcast that helps women of color secure their seat at the table. I hope you had a great weekend. Please let us know how your weekend was in the chat. I know that majority of you are watching us on LinkedIn, but also we have viewers on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And so we're so happy that you're here. You could be anywhere on the internet and you're here with us. If it's your first time joining us, you're already part of the family, you're part of the squad. But if you rock with us every Monday at noon, happy that you came back. Today, I'm really excited about our conversation because I'm a big fan of today's guest. And I had the pleasure of first time hearing her speak maybe 5 years ago. You know, when you get older, time just seems weird. You don't even know how much time has passed. But I was at the Great Girlfriends Conference in New York City, New Jersey, and I got to hear Tieko speak, and I was just smitten from then and been able to follow her journey. And I'm just so excited that we get to talk about emotional intelligence today in the workplace. You hear about it all the time, but sometimes we don't even know these names and things that are thrown out there. And so today we're going to dig a little bit deeper and understand why each of us needs to lean into our emotional intelligence. Sometimes you may have even heard it called EQ. So make sure that you ping somebody and let them know that we're about to get the conversation started. Use the chat. Tell us how you're feeling. If certain things are resonating with you, you know how we love to have a tambourine moment here at Secure the Seat. So if it hits, which I know it will, please do so. Last thing that I want to say is You Are More Than Magic. My young adult book is out for teens. So I hope that you will pick up a copy for some teen in your life that could use just some support, right? You know, I can imagine being in junior high or high school during a pandemic, right? During all of the TikToking and just all of the things, you know, it's already hard enough sometimes to be a teenager. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting them. It's graduation season. So make sure that you cop this, even if you don't have any teens in your life that you're parenting or being a guardian to, but I'm sure you know somebody who could use it. And so again, today we're chatting with my friend Tieko Nejon Wilson. Just happy that she's here. She's an educator, a facilitator, an emotional intelligence practitioner. She sits at a lot of different intersections, and we're going to bring her to the stage so we can get this conversation started. Tieko, how are you?
I am good. I am good. I did not know that that's where you first learned of me as Great Girlfriends. I had a whole nother assumption. I'll share that with you later.
Yes, that was the first time. And so shout out to the Great Girlfriends crew.
Yes.
So that was awesome that day. I'm like, ooh, I need whatever she's talking about. I need it.
I love it. I love it.
But for those who may not know about your work, Tieko, can you tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I'm this trendy word practitioner, right? And emotional intelligence or two-word practitioner. I'm an emotional intelligence practitioner. I am certified to give assessments. And it's funny because it feels like a trend. However, it's literally how we live. And so I get to show up in workplaces, corporate America, some of your big box stores, some of your small corporations, and I really hone in on behaviors that shape the culture of a workplace. But I get to talk about emotions, that thing we're told to leave behind, and not make decisions by, don't choose jobs based on it, right? But I get to actually teach how that's actually detrimental and almost impossible to leave emotions detached from our actions.
I'm glad you said that because I just remember through my whole career, people say, don't bring your personal life to work or don't do this and that. And it's like, I don't know how you can bring your authentic self to work and then not bring all these other pieces, but in a contained kind of way, right? So we're going to drop Tieko's information in the chat because I know that you're going to want to connect with her, bring her in, hire her, work with her, and just think about your own self too. I know sometimes when we're talking about EQ, we can say, oh, I know my boss needs more of this or my colleagues, but let's also make sure that we're being self-aware and make sure we get what we need in our toolkits as well. But let's kick it off with just some level setting. What is emotional intelligence by your definition?
Yeah. So here's a simple way to adopt and adapt the definition. It's, am I capable of feeling or knowing what's happening to me in real time. Then can I assess what's happening to the other person, whomever I'm in interaction with, whether it's my boss, my children, or the person in the drive-through in real time. And then there's one more thing to it. And what behavior will I choose to suit the circumstance? So it's, what do I feel in real time? I love the tambourine. It's, what am I experiencing and feeling in real time? But usually we stop right there. And then it's being able to assess what's happening to the other person that I'm in an encounter with in real time, and then choose the behavior that suits the circumstance. That's emotional intelligence.
Whew, choose the behavior. Say it one more time, just for the people in the back, in the foyer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the people in the back, it's first being able to assess what's happening to me. What do I feel with myself? What's happening? What am I feeling in real time? So that means in presence, not future thinking, right? Not scenario playing, but in real time. What could the other person be experiencing? What emotions or feelings are they having in real time? And what behavior will I choose to suit their circumstance? And it's really key that we dig into what behavior, because emotions aren't actions. So you said something earlier that we're taught, right, not to make emotional decisions or but the funny thing is emotions are just triggers. They're signals to say something's happening to me, around me, or in me that wants my attention. So an emotion in and of itself is not an action. It's not a behavior. It's saying, I'm angry. Well, what behavior will I choose because I'm angry? I'm fearful. What behavior will I choose? So it's really understanding not just what I feel, but what behavior will I match to this feeling.
That is so good. And we could take that, obviously not just in the workplace, but in every walk of life. And I think sometimes we do have to like take a pause and say, okay, I'm feeling this, but what is the behavior I'm going to choose, right? And I think for managers, it's so important. And I know we'll talk a little bit about that. But my next question for you, I know that the chat on all the platforms are popping, Tieko. So it's hitting. But what's one example of how EQ can be helpful in the workplace, and what is the consequence of our leaders and managers not having this competency?
Well, I like that because you started with some, but that same thing you started with is probably a core premise for me. Is that we have this thing that it's work life, right? So work life balance, work life integration, work life harmony. We're getting really fancy with trying to, but I dare us believe that we're one person that shows up everywhere. So I'm one human that's going to go to work and then come home and then hang with my friends and then go to my faith-based practice or whatever, then to my social groups and then back to work. So the idea that I'm supposed to become a separate person, it's really accepting that I'm one human. And the one thing that connects all humans. So if you first believe we're all humans that show up everywhere, I don't get to change who I am, right? This work self versus life self, when work should be a part of life. Especially, I'll throw this in, especially when we spend most of our awake hours in the workplace. So what should happen is that we accept who we are, because it's one person that's showing up in the workplace for most of my life, right? My awake hours are spent working. And so that's the first thing. And so it's really, now when you think like that, you have to believe that you usually think your way is the way, right? The way I human is probably the way I think most people should human, right? And if you believe that, that's the thing you have to be willing to adjust, that we all human the way we were reared to human. We do life. So we solve problems. Managers, we all solve problems the way we learned to solve problems. We manage stress the way we've learned. And so I think it's detrimental, or sometimes the consequences are steep when a leader thinks that everyone should have the same work ethic or the same work style, or dismiss what they've experienced because their experience doesn't match yours. We talk a lot about empathy and really tearing that theory apart for what it's been created to be, and then digging into what it should be. So really allowing humans to show up in the workplace. And I'll throw this in. If you think about it, that thing that we were taught to not bring ourselves to work was turned on its head in 2020, right? Because now you're talking about work from home. I mean, so it's this very definition of, how do I be myself? If companies had paid attention, most of the time I'm telling companies, you had an issue pre-COVID and pre the murder of George Floyd. You had an issue before those two incidents that seem to have changed your world. You just didn't have to address it.
Yes, that part. That part, they didn't have to address it. And I think it's such an important, I mean, you make so many great points, but the fact now that many people are working from home, you are bringing all those pieces of yourself, whether you like it or not, whether you want me to or not. And even if I have an obstacle or a challenge or an opportunity with my manager or a colleague, they also, if I'm coming with some EQ, hopefully, I hope that they meet me with that same. Right? So
Right,
they
right.
get that. I don't know.
And actually, it's weird because now I'm bringing you into my life. Right? It's not even me showing up into your workplace anymore. It's now me bringing you into my life place. That's what work from home has done. And it's interesting because when I heard what at the height of it, right? Companies were saying, well, we're really trying to keep the engagement. Well, was your team really engaged in the first place, or were you able to micromanage? So you kind of forced engagement, right? And so it's really teaching, how do I get people to buy into this company? I mean, look at the retention and the turnover rate right now, right? How do I get people to buy in? It's really starts with seeing their humanity.
That part, I have, there's a couple questions that are coming through the platform. So I just want to,
Shoot them to me. Yes.
I'll shoot a few because they're really good. So I'm going to paraphrase because this is kind of long, but the person's asking, how do you mix vulnerability with emotional intelligence? Are they the same or is it different? That's a great question.
Oh, that's good. So keep in mind, emotional intelligence is just managing emotions. It doesn't mean spilling emotions. It doesn't mean I'm emotional. It's recognizing that I have this emotion that needs my attention. So keep that in mind first. And then I'm going to throw this really quickly. I don't remember where I heard it, but I started studying it more. Someone had said that there's a difference between transparency and vulnerability, right? And so then I started playing with this theory. Well, what's the difference between transparency, vulnerability, and authenticity? And they're all different, but they play a part. So vulnerability doesn't work if you're not authentic. Authenticity works, but it works best if you're transparent. Transparent says, I'll tell you everything, but it doesn't mean you have the space to impact me. Vulnerability says, now I'll tell you all of that and I leave room for you to impact me, good or bad, hurt my feelings, build me up. I now give room, give license to you to impact me. We need more vulnerable leadership and authentic leadership, because the authenticity should be the base, right? Whatever I give should be my truth, and it should be true for this scenario. I hope that helps somebody. I mean, I know that's a lot because it's really deep. And like I said, I started studying it, but there is indeed, and no, it's not the same in emotional intelligence. It's a component. It would probably be towards your emotional awareness and emotional expression. So the theory I study there has 4 sub composites, and emotional awareness and emotional expression are 2 of them.
Oof, that's so rich. Listen, we're dropping Tico's information in the chat because I already know by the buzzing that I'm seeing on the platforms that you're like, ooh, chomping at the bit. So they won't. So we're going to make sure we drop your information so they can follow you, connect, hire. Another question from the chat is, how are you seeing companies invest in this competency for their leaders and managers? Or are you seeing that?
Yeah, I stay gainfully employed. Um, and it's been a good thing. And I think that my job is here to stay. And the reason I believe so is because I try to make sure that, again, I'm dealing with the whole human. So leaders are actually getting something too. One of the things I don't do, though, is one-offs. So I no longer do lunch and learns. I don't do 1-hour sessions. I ask for companies to commit to me for at least 3 months, maybe 6 months. And it's been a thing, because then I let me say it this way. When we plant a bunch of seeds, right? It's one thing to bring in this speaker, bring in this speaker. That's like a bunch of seeds. But what do seeds do if you aren't there to water them and nurture them? So I want to be able to measure my growth, measure my worth, and then match your dollar to what I can do with your company. So people are hiring. Another prerequisite I have is that leaders have to participate in some way. That's been a good thing, but just really going in and challenging the behaviors. So yes, companies are investing. I am not the lowest priced trainer out here, but I will say I'm worth my weight in gold because I do understand humans. I really, really can say it's a skill set. I understand humans.
I love it. And again, we're dropping Tico's information in the,
Thank you.
in the chat so that you can do that. And ping, if you have a manager, a leader, a colleague that, I think that all of our colleagues need to be tuned into this. You don't have to be a manager to practice emotional intelligence. We are all leaders. And so definitely make sure too that how you show up, that you're bringing those pieces of the puzzle. And one last question I want to take from the chat, Tieko, is do you think vulnerability looks different for people of color?
Absolutely. It looks different for everybody, and then it can be exacerbated or similar between us because of our experiences. So I do, and it's interesting. Going back to the last question, I also do cohorts that's just for Black leadership right now, and I work with Publicis Media Group. This is our second year, third cohort of senior executive leadership. That's Black talent only. So yes, it looks different, but here's what I do believe. We can have the same skill set to show up. A lot of times we deal with imposter syndrome, so that keeps us. So the first premise for me is, what's your identity? What's your self-perception? Who are you when you go in? So yes, I think vulnerability is different based on culture, but it doesn't really have to be.
I like that. I like that so much. And my last question before we jump into our bonus round, there's so many questions in the chat, but I want to. It's almost like how a lot of people are asking similar questions, and you're giving us that gold. So thank you for that. What is one thing that each of us could do today to start to hone in, enhance, activate our emotional intelligence?
Okay. Here's one huge tip. Is stop running from your emotions. And what I mean by that is be okay with feeling, because anyone that missed it at the stop, emotion is at the top. I'm sorry. Emotions are not actions. They're just signals and triggers to say, hey, something's happening again in you, around you, or to you that requires a response, right? It wants your attention. And so give that attention. So the practical tip I always give people is pause is an action. So be willing to pause. And usually we're told be willing to pause before we act, right? But if you're acting based on what you think should happen, what you think the answer should be, what you think the other party wants from you, that's not always good enough. So I say pause and feel. Pause and ask yourself, what am I actually experiencing? Because I'll tell you, emotions can be tricky. They can show up as one thing, but really be rooted in something else. So someone might perceive that you're angry, and you might think that you're angry, but it could be shame. Right? It could be that I wasn't prepared for this presentation. Wow, this is not what I expected. The crowd is dead. This might be anxiety that's kicking up, right? And so you might not be fearful, you might be anxious. So really tapping into what is it that I truly, truly feel in this time. And so buying yourself time, pausing, saying, hey, I want to get back to you. It's always okay to say, I want to get back to you. I want to circle back to this conversation. I tell teams when they're dealing with their managers, if the manager hits you with something in a meeting to say you're one-to-one that doesn't feel quite good, and because you have this gut thing. Emotions are biological, like your heart starts beating fast, you start holding your breath, you tense up. When you start feeling those feelings, buy yourself time and say, I really appreciate this. I want to ask you, is it open for me to circle back? Maybe later today or tomorrow with some thoughts, but not to feel rushed, to have to rush past your emotions and what you feel.
That right there, I know that was for all of us, because I think that pause is so key. And sometimes when we're in these one-on-ones or we're in a meeting, we feel like we have to react right away and that you have no space, because like you said, your heart's beating, your palms are sweating.
Yes. Emails too, right? We do it even with emails. Emails come in and right away we're like, oh, I need to pause and ask yourself, what do I feel right now? So that way you can then again choose the behavior that suits the circumstance. But if you start, and then here's where it goes down a spiral. If you respond without pausing, before you know it, you guys are working around a false narrative, because you responded just off the cuff, coming up with something quick. And that thing now takes its own life, and it wasn't even the truth of what you wanted to express or what you felt. So really pausing and saying, what do I feel in this moment?
I love that so much. It's funny. I had a conversation with somebody a few days ago, and they had done something that I was not happy with. And instead of lashing out, or not lashing out, but getting upset, or leaning into this feeling of disrespect that I felt, I took a moment to take an hour before I was ready to respond to them. And then once I did, I was thinking about what you were saying about what tools do I need to respond in this moment, right? Because if they're coming at me like sideways and then I decide to come at them sideways, then like you said, we're chasing this narrative and we never get to where we are. And so I had to like pull my tools and say, okay, they may not be in a position to and have the tools. They need to engage with me in this in a mature way.
Right. And asking yourself what could have triggered them to even have this response, right? And so it could be because they weren't prepared, or I don't know what the situation was, right? But it could be because they weren't prepared or they felt insecure in that moment. So being able to step back and say, hey, come back, a question always works. So like, what do you need from me for us to get to this bottom line? What can I do to get us to this bottom line? I love asking questions because last tip, when people give you a question, I mean, when they give you something, a statement, and you respond with a statement, now you guys are both in defense mode. Like, what do I say back? But if I ask you a question, I lock you into responsibility. So now you're thinking, what about what I said? So as opposed to me telling you, you said this and it made me feel, I'm feeling this. What could I do for you, for us to get to this end? Because I think we both have the same end goal. Asking questions just kind of helps people to calm it down, really think about what they're saying and not be so defensive.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a tool, and I hope a resource that people will take into the work week, because sometimes when we do feel a certain way, that person could be blindsided, right? And so there's just a whole lot, like you said, with emails, just different pieces of the puzzle. I think it's so rich. Make sure that you tag somebody in today's conversation, because everybody needs it. I think if we meet each other with some emotional intelligence, we can dismantle some of these biases that we see and having these difficult conversations.
Yes, and communication is key. We actually have one that's called Soft Skills for Hard Conversations, is one of the sessions that I do based on emotional intelligence, but really being able to communicate. I think that's just the lack that leaders aren't even taught how to communicate with all types. And the other thing is, we're really having like several conversations at one time. You're thinking about what to tell your direct report. You're thinking about what you need to tell your leader. You're thinking about what you need to tell your cross team. And then you got emails in the inbox. So you're having several conversations. Oh, and if you have children or a spouse or a partner or or a dog, you're thinking for several things at one time. So really having to manage all the conversations in our head.
This is so good. So good. We're moving to our bonus round, and I hate to end this conversation soon, but Tieko, I'm a lover of grits and rap lyrics. It's part of my it's part of my DNA. Are you a grits eater?
I am a grits eater, and here's how much of a grits eater I am. I can do them savory or sweet. Okay. I love them savory with shrimp. There's a spot that I just tried in LA, so we might need to do it. It was really delicious, but I also like them with sugar. I know that gets a lot of people in trouble, but butter and sugar as a hot cereal in the morning is just as good to me, but I love grits. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to pretend that I didn't hear the sugar part, but we are definitely going to have some grits together. We're going to make that happen.
That's our thing.
We're going to make it happen. And the next question that I have is, everyone watching today is a leader. You don't need your manager to, promote you into leadership to be a leader. We can all activate that. What is one tip you would leave all of our leaders today on how to make the workplace better than we found it?
Remember who you were before you were in that leadership role. Remember what you felt. Remember what you needed. Remember what you wanted work to look like. Remember your hunger for the position, because most people promote because they want to, right? Not just because they have to. So remember what the desires you had, and then try to be that for the next person, for the people that are under you, so to speak. I hate under, but the people that report to you, the people that are part of your team, be what you needed when you were on their side. Because all leaders had to start somewhere, and so be to them what you needed.
I love that so much, because I think sometimes you're right. We do forget that we were in that role at some point, or we were on the other side of the table. And so this is where that EQ comes in, y'all. Remembering that,
Yeah, just tapping in, and that's all authority. Parenting, just remembering what it felt like to be in the other position and being willing to help, but especially for leaders, being a coach and a mentor, not just being the boss, but really helping people. To put it like this, no one should leave you and not be good for the next person.
Listen. And you can use that however way you want to.
I'm just leaving it there, okay? No
Well,
one should leave you and not be good for the next person.
Oh man, Tieko, you've given us so many gems today. I just appreciate you, how you show up in the world, how you help us hone in and just be better humans. I love it. Any final thoughts for our viewers today before we head out?
Yeah, you know what? Take your time with life. I was thinking about graduates. I don't know why this was on my mind just yesterday, but this is graduation season, right? And so my thing is, there's always going to be a next, but there will never be a now. You'll never get now again, right? And so thinking about how we're always on to the next thing, like we did this, now what's next? What's next? What's next? But what about now? And so just really being present, which is a huge part of emotional intelligence, but just being a present. And when I say present, I mean aware. What's happening right now? Just slowing down a bit, a little bit of slow living. It never hurt anyone.
Ooh, listen, right now, I love that. And I think that's something that we all have to remind ourselves, because I know for me, definitely as an entrepreneur, you're thinking, what's next? What's next? Got to stay ahead of the pack, got to keep thinking and innovating, but also right now is necessary.
It's necessary. Just slow living. I love slow living. What most people don't know is I've built a way that I only work 3 days a week, and sometimes from 9 to 2, and that's usually, and that's a privilege. I don't say that as if everyone gets that. I know it's a privilege, but I'm just determined to live slow. Lauryn Hill says you can get the money, you can get the power, but keep your eyes on the final hour. In my mind, like, what matters more than the money and the power? And for me, it's my time.
Well, I don't even have to ask you what your favorite rap lyric is now.
There you go. There you go. You can get the money, you can get that power, but keep your eye on the final hour. And so that's something that I love Lauryn Hill. Who doesn't, right? If you don't, then that's worse than sugar grits, I think.
It is worse than sugar grits. That part, period. How can people find you? We'll drop your links in the chat, but just anything you want to direct them to past your website or?
Yeah. So the website for any kind of training, executive coaching, team leadership, that's Tieko Nejon, TIEKONEJON.com. And then socials are all Tieko Nejon. But then I also have this consumer facing site that will be launching in July. That's Class with Tieko. So CLASS with Tieko.com. And that's going to be the consumer facing side for emotional wellness. We have a mission. This is the second time I've said this live. We have a mission to teach 100,000 people emotional intelligence for free. So I'm not selling a masterclass. It will be masterclass-ish, but for free. I'm going to get the companies to pay for it. So that's our goal. So if people sign up, then they'll get to hear about how they can learn that for free as an individual.
I'm with it. That's good. Put this in your toolkit. Make sure that you save it. Again, thank you so much for who you are. And I can't wait to have some grits with salt with you soon.
Yes, and make the same to you. Thank you so much for doing this work and giving space for this kind of work. It's necessary. It's necessary for us as Black people, and then it's necessary for us as humans. So thank you.
So much love. Have a great, we're going to have to bring you back and talk about that 3-day work week, because I know some of us were like, wait a second, I need more on that. So
we'll do an entrepreneur's journey.
Yes, I love it. But have a great day. I'll talk to you
soon. You too. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.
Listen, today was such a great show. I'm just so thankful for Tieko and the work that she does. Make sure that you connect. We all need this emotional intelligence. Send her information to your talent development, to your HR people, because this is how we change the way the workplace works for everybody, making sure that people have the tools they need to be good leaders, be good managers, be good humans. The last thing that I want to share with you, if you rock with us each week, we have our May affirmation. My partner in Shine, Mike, he's behind the scenes today, so I'm going to give us our affirmation, and it still is for the month, is this too shall pass. Tieko said, do we have the tools that we need to be able to show up, the behaviors to be able to lean into the situation as it calls for it? And I think sometimes we have to think about what our behaviors are, right? It's easy to be able to point out somebody else's, but making sure that we look at our behaviors as well. So as you're thinking about the situations that you're in this week, in order for them to pass, your situations that may not feel comfortable, what is it behavior wise that you might have to shift? And I think sometimes it's very, very hard for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what is it that I can do to make sure that I can move on from this hurdle, move past it, right? Sometimes, again, we're looking at what other people are doing to us, but let's look at what our behaviors, what behaviors do we need to align with or let go, right? There's this thing that I often think about: what do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? Right? And so when we think about those things, it can help us just kind of map out our next steps a little bit better. We're almost at the end of May. Again, if you haven't had a chance to pick up You Are More Than Magic, my first young adult book with Penguin Teen, please do so. And I've actually had quite a few adults who've read it, and they've actually loved it too. So if you can't get enough of my writing, then I suggest you get ahead and get it. It's available on Audible as well. But have a great, great day and a good week, and keep securing your seat. We'll see you next week, maybe. I know, wait, next Monday is a holiday, right? So I haven't decided if we're going to have a show or not. So I'll keep you posted. Right. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.